Boa tarde, pessoal. Vamos começar um webinar. Muito prazer para aqueles que eu não conheço. Meu nome é Simone Ferreira, sou orientadora do EducationUSA aqui no Rio de Janeiro, na PUC Rio de Janeiro. É um prazer estar aqui com vocês hoje, com esse webinar, que a gente vai conversar um pouquinho com 6 universidades, 6 instituições de ensino norte-americanas, e vamos conversar sobre as provas, né? A questão do testing, provas opcionais, quando você vai fazer uma candidatura para universidades americanas. O que realmente significa que as universidades adotam essa política de test optional? Então, a gente vai conversar sobre isso. Queria falar também para vocês que o EducationUSA, para as pessoas que estão vindo aqui a primeira vez, o EducationUSA é a fonte oficial de informações sobre estudos nos Estados Unidos. Nós somos um órgão ligado ao Departamento de Estado americano que orienta pessoas que querem estudar nos Estados Unidos, né? Fazer uma graduação, um mestrado, um doutorado nos Estados Unidos. O EducationUSA no Brasil, nós temos vários centros, nós temos 40 centros pelo Brasil. Como eu falei, eu estou falando com vocês diretamente da cidade do Rio de Janeiro. O EducationUSA está presente no mundo todo, temos mais de 400 centros pelo mundo. E agora eu vou mudar para inglês e a gente vai começar a conversar aqui com os admissions officers. Hello everyone, I'm glad you all are here. It's a pleasure to have you here today when you're going to talk about test optional policy. What's the meaning of test optional? When the universities say you are test optional, what they really are talking about. So we have 6 admission officers from 6 different universities, and they are going to talk with you about that. So we have today Elizabeth, sorry, I cannot understand your last name, is Lawrence, right? Thank you, Elizabeth. Minnesota State University. We have Christopher Toribio from Orange Coast College. We have Robert Brannigan from Embry-Riddle University. We have Rashad Housey from Missouri Western State University. We have Scott McClama from Pepperdine University. And you have Youssef Wahib from Stony Brook University. Thank you for coming to our session. Thank you, admission officers, for being here today. I'm going to mute my mic and the floor is yours.
Boa tarde, bem-vindo, pessoal. Primeiro, queremos agradecer a EducationUSA por nos dar essa oportunidade de apresentar para vocês sobre o tema de test optional. Sabemos que essa questão é uma coisa muito relevante hoje em dia. Então, vamos falar sobre esse assunto e depois vai ter tempo para vocês fazer perguntas para nós. Segundo, queremos agradecer vocês por participar. Todos nós amamos o Brasil, especialmente eu. Eu tinha a oportunidade de morar no Rio de Janeiro por 5 anos e absolutamente adorei. Então, obrigado por me deixar praticar o meu português agora. Mas vamos continuar a apresentação em inglês. Just to let you know, please feel free to put your questions in the chat during the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. So as we're presenting, you can go ahead and start putting your questions in there, and we'll get to those at the end. So I'm going to let my colleagues, Simone, thank you for the introduction, but I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves and their positions at their universities. Rashad?
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Rashad Howes from Missouri Western State University, and I'm the Director of International Recruitment. Pleasure being here with you. Thanks for coming.
Hello everyone. My name is Youssef, International Admissions Counselor from Stony Brook University in New York. Thank you for coming today.
Hi everyone, I'm Christopher Toribio. I'm from Orange Coast College, a 2-year community college in Costa Mesa, California. Thank you for coming.
Hi everyone, this is Bobby Brannigan. I'm the Associate Director for International Admissions at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University here in Daytona Beach, Florida. So welcome.
Hey, good evening everyone. I'm Elizabeth Lorenz, the International Recruitment and Retention Specialist at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Thanks for joining us.
And I don't know if I introduced myself at the beginning, but Scott McClama from Pepperdine University in Malibu, California. Thank you so much, and we'll get started. So the question, the reason you're all here is learning about test optional, what it means. And so we're going to kind of go through that a little bit, but essentially to answer the question right off the bat, simply, it means that to apply for admission to a university in the United States, if that university says they are test optional, it means that you do not have to submit a standardized test to be admitted to that university. So you can apply without submitting. You may be familiar with the two most popular standardized tests in the United States for college, being the SAT or the ACT. Test optional means that you do not need to submit those exams. So this is a trend that that had kind of started, way back years ago. In fact, there are a lot of colleges and universities that never required those to begin with, but a lot that did have started moving away from that and have started going test optional, to where students can submit those exams if they would like, but they don't have to. This trend has really accelerated since COVID-19 has hit, and the effects of the pandemic have meant that many people have had very limited access to taking the tests. A lot of the tests have been canceled, testing centers closed, and so there's a recognition that it really just wouldn't be feasible. So a lot of institutions have moved to being test optional a lot more since in the past year. And so you've seen, now more than ever, there are institutions that are test optional for the 2021 academic year. So some of these institutions that have gone test optional for 2021, will go back to requiring standardized tests probably once the pandemic is over and under control. But a lot of institutions, and at least from what we've heard and talking to our colleagues, there's plans for some of those to remain test optional. And certainly there are a lot of advocates among us, especially international admissions personnel that would like to stay that way. And we realize that gives greater access, especially for international students, to be able to apply to our universities. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's a good opportunity. And you can go check out that we put this website on here, fairtest.org. You can check that out and find out which universities are currently test optional. They stay pretty up to date on that. And as of right now, there are almost 1,700 universities in the United States that are currently test optional. So again, some of these are ones that had decided, even years ago to go test optional. Some of these are ones that have just decided recently to be test optional because of the pandemic. We can go to the next slide. So we're also asking, you may hear this term test flexible as well. And so we wanted to kind of clarify those because it's kind of easy to get these terms mixed up. Test flexible means that you don't need to submit necessarily the SAT or the ACT. You can substitute that for another. You can substitute another exam for one of those standardized tests. So some institutions will allow students to submit exams that they may take that are required of them that they take in their own country. So for example, in Brazil, that would be the ENEM. So there are some institutions that would allow you to submit an ENEM score in lieu of submitting an SAT or an ACT score. There's a lot of other countries that have tests that are similar to that, that's compulsory for students to take, if they want to, enter into university. So that's what test flexible means. So there are some institutions that, require some kind of test, but there's a lot of, as the name suggests, there's a lot of flexibility in the kind of tests that they can submit. I know some institutions as well that you can, if you submit a TOEFL, you don't have to submit an SAT or an ACT. You can use a TOEFL exam as the one to submit. So that's a little bit what that means. So make sure, you know, it's important to understand the difference between the test optional and the test flexible. Again, the test optional means that you don't have to submit a standardized test. And when we say that a standardized test, with that caveat in there, that doesn't mean that you don't have to submit an English proficiency. So you want to check on that as well, because some institutions may and probably will still require of international students some form of demonstrated English proficiency, and that can kind of come in a number of different ways. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but yeah, just to clear it up, the difference between test optional and test flexible, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague to pick up.
All right, thanks, Scott. So when we say that we are test optional, we mean it. So what that means is that should you submit them anyway? Well, you definitely could. So it kind of depends. If you are thinking about submitting the SAT or the ACT test, how did you do? So if we're test optional, we don't necessarily require it for admission. It doesn't hurt your application unless, say that you did very poorly on it, then I would just think not to submit it at all. In some institutions, they do require them for, say, scholarship consideration potentially. So you're able to submit them regardless to be considered for their scholarships. But if you did really well, that can definitely go along with your admission review, and we'll talk more about that in the next slides. But you know, so just thinking about, you know, how did you do if you don't have access to the test, if you you know, aren't thinking about taking the test, then that's definitely not a problem, because we do mean that we are test optional. So we will not dock you for your admission review if you do not submit those test scores. So if there's no test, then what are you looking for? So that goes along with the way that we will look at your admission. So we'll look at maybe your extracurricular activities. We'll look at your grades. We'll look at how you did in key subject areas. So if you're going into a technical program, like an engineering type program, then, you know, we'll look at your math and sciences. If you're going into a business program, you know, maybe we'll look at some other different aspects of your subject areas. So we might be looking at recommendation letters. We might be looking at personal statements. So we're going to be looking at you holistically, like as an individual, and what you're able to bring to the university or institution that you're applying to, outside of just simply your test scores. So moving on to the next slide, I'll give a little bit more information. So comprehensive academic review. So academic performance is based on the school's curriculum and the student's academic background, so fulfilling the course requirements as well. So comprehensive academic review means that we are looking at your background. We're looking at, again, those extracurricular activities, those different types of things that you're going to be able to bring to our institution, not just your grades on these standardized tests and your GPA. So international admissions is trained to understand the context of various curricula and grading scales, like national curriculum, IB, which is International Baccalaureate, AP, external exams, etc. as well. So you don't have to convert or translate your grades to the US grading scale. Your transcripts may have to be in English, so they can be translated in English, but we do have people on our institutions, our specialists, that will be able to translate or convert your grades to that US grading scale. They are converted based on the understanding of your specific type of curricula. So going along with the school profile and, you know, whatever you provide us with, we'll be able to definitely tell as well. So like I said, provide additional context like that. Maybe your teacher or your counselor or your principal can provide us with something a little bit more, so that we can kind of understand you and we can understand your curriculum as well. Most admissions officers are reading from home, where a lot of us are working from home, but regardless, you know, in the normal times as well, there's a lot of different applications that come through. It could be thousands of students that are applying to our institutions. So just thinking about, you know, that we are actually reading all of your information, maybe not in our desks at our normal, you know, our normal times. It could be, you know, late at night, on the weekends, whatever it may be. So we are looking at students in a comprehensive manner. So not just, like I said, your test scores and your transcripts, but a little bit more than that as well. With that, I'm going to be passing it on to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Yeah, so pretty much as an international student, specifically from Brazil, wanting to apply to any university nowadays, Most of universities nowadays are test optional. Now that you understand what it means exactly to be test optional, you may have heard also that a lot of universities follow a holistic review approach when it comes to choosing, saying yes or no to any applicant that applies to that university. But what does that mean? It's very important. Back then, holistic review before test optional, it does mean simply that we're not looking at this student as a number, but we're looking at student as a person. So it's not only one thing that we'll look at when a student apply. Now, a lot of universities, a lot of counselors, a lot of students, now that they hear that all institutions are going test optional, they wonder, what does the holistic review look like? It's pretty much the same thing. However, with the fact that we're not requiring the SAT, as my colleagues just mentioned earlier, and now that you understand what it means exactly, it does depend on more broadly on other factors beyond the SAT. So admissions to any university within the US, whether it is test optional or not a test optional, has never been based on one single attribute. It's based on a complete examination of students' academic record, plus many academic and personal factors, which include basically your high school GPA, grade 10, 11, and 12, the strength of the curriculum. For example, if you are a student belonging to a curriculum, let's say an IB curriculum or different one, we do know the difference between each curriculum. And if that curriculum tend to be a really hard one, we do know that, and we will take that into consideration when you apply. Course level grades as well, whether meaning, for example, if you are taking an English class, there are different levels. So if you are one of the bright students within your classroom at that particular school that follows that particular system or curriculum, we know whether it's going to be a high level, course level, or lower or standard. So a number of classes taken in each subject, it's also very important. We'll look at those too. What does that mean as well is, for example, if you've taken calculus, you've taken math, you've taken science, and you're applying for restricted majors, the majors are really, really highly competitive, even though we don't require the SAT anymore. We want to see if you have taken those in at the high school level. In addition to this, we do look at evidence of leadership. Leadership can be definitely proved through a lot of things, either special talents, interests, extracurricular activities, involved in campus, through events, through helping out a professor in research or a teacher, and so on and so forth. And all other personal qualities through extracurricular activities, volunteering, work, and other non-academic pursuits. These are all things that will definitely define the holistic review of each university, that also used not only to decide whether you are the best fit for our university or not, but also to help us decide whether we want you to get a scholarship or not. In the next slide, you will also, it is very important that you understand the holistic review and what it means for test optional, that one of the advices we give to all students is apply broadly. Do not limit your chances. Very simple. Why? Because think of it like shopping in a mall or shopping in a grocery store. You don't want to limit your chances, but at the same time, the advice that we give, do not apply too broadly. So don't take it too further, not too much. So you don't end up like wasting your time at the same time and energy and just focus doing a lot at the same time. But definitely apply broadly, don't limit your chances, but do it responsibly. So why is that very important? Because some universities may be highly selective in a certain major. You may get your chance in another major at a different university. Not only that, when it comes to also scholarships, for example, you may get a chance for a higher scholarship at this institution rather than the other institution. And also because the other factors could help. Maybe you like the location of that institution, while in the other one, it is good, there is a reputation, but the location is not perfect for you. These are all just a pretty simple example, but definitely have a backup plan when first choice does not work out. And that's what we mean by apply broadly. With this, I'll hand it over to my colleague.
All right, thank you, UC. So those are really wonderful tips in terms of applying broadly, and we want students to do that. And one way that we want you to look at is actually look at institutions that have a guaranteed admissions policy. Now, the two subjects that we just talked about, comprehensive review and holistic review, those are ways that university admissions are looking at applicants and how they're determining admissibility. But look at schools that are guaranteed. So basically, what this means is that if you meet the minimum admissions criteria or the standards, you're basically guaranteed admission to that institution, with a lot of ambiguity when it comes to test optional, and also when it comes to the holistic review process. You would want to take control of your own destiny. So a really good example of guaranteed admissions institutions are community colleges, schools that I also work for, where you can basically just enroll, you complete your high school, enroll, do your 2 years, then transfer to an institution or university to complete your bachelor's degree. And when students transfer to university, many universities have a guaranteed admissions criteria based on what and how well you performed in your classes at a community college. But there's other four-year institutions that also do have guaranteed admissions. So when you're looking at the admissions criteria for each institution, it's okay to ask, are you holistic review, are you comprehensive review, or are you guaranteed admission? So that way, when you're applying to multiple institutions, you have many choices. So when you when you get all your offers, you at least have something as a backup, because we want you to get placed somewhere. I'm going to move on to the next slide, and we'll talk about essays.
All right, so when we, everyone knows that essays can be a big part of your college admissions. Sometimes there is going to be a essay that's required for admissions to the school. Sometimes it's going to be an essay required for a scholarship, or maybe you just want to go ahead and give like your own essay that's not necessarily required, but you feel like it's something that you want to submit anyway. So just here to kind of give you just some couple tips on writing your essay. The first one I'll definitely say would just be authentic. Authenticity is obviously, it comes down to who you are, what your personal experience is, as well as anything special that might be about your specific situation. So these are all things that we definitely want to know as college representatives. As we are reading your essays, we're going to definitely be, kind of looking for those types of themes. As someone who reads essays, and I know that many of my colleagues do as well, we do notice that there are definitely common themes, some things that students will say that someone else might have said as well. So definitely take this under consideration. If there is something that you can do that's creative, maybe you don't want to write like paragraphs or maybe 2-3 page essay. Maybe you want to write out like a calendar. Maybe you want to give the college admissions representatives a calendar of your different activities or different dates that may have special significance to you. Some people that maybe want to go to a college or university that is more science heavy, maybe they'll talk about some research that they've done. Maybe include some statistics or things like that. If you're going into business, you may want to write, maybe reference a business plan or something like that. So definitely you want to just be creative. You want to make sure that your essay is going to be personalized, and that's going to be something that maybe the college admissions representative has not read before. One kind of tip that I can also say is like, we know that COVID has played a part in all of our lives. So we're actually anticipating that we're gonna hear like, this essay topic is gonna be like my COVID story, or it may even be assigned to you by the university that you're wishing to attend to. So definitely that is a great example of being able to be authentic, personal, and creative when you are going into writing this type of a story. Because we know that, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have some similar stories related to COVID, whether it be their struggles, their personal, kind of convictions of how they got over this specific situation, or how it maybe even affected their family. But definitely take that into consideration when you're going into and writing these essays, because of the fact that it might be a very common theme. All right, so with the next, at the next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit more about scholarships. So we already have talked about, obviously, test optional. One of the things that we recently have gotten a lot of questions about is how do these test scores go into students being able to get scholarships, which is a great question. For the 6 of us, I know how to answer it, but you want to kind of take under consideration what other colleges you might be wanting to go into, because the best person to answer these questions is the college or university that you are wishing to attend. So with that, are the scholarships more competitive? Sometimes they can be, sometimes they will be. There are some scholarships that you'll automatically get once you get accepted to the college or university. There are other scholarships that you do have to maybe do some additional things. Maybe you have to have a better GPA or have more accomplished grades when you are in high school. So these are definitely things that you should be worrying about. You should be thinking about. You should be kind of taking note when you're going to ask your college admissions counselor about some of the aspects of that application to those scholarships, whether or not ACT, SAT will still play a factor, even though the college or university is test optional or test flexible for college admissions. These two things are, that's very, very different, two different concepts, because you can be test flexible or test optional, but also still require at the SAT or ACT for any scholarships. This also may go into effect for maybe private scholarships as well, scholarships that are not given by the college or university, but maybe they are given to you by like a foundation like in your country or in your city. Maybe a business is giving away a scholarship and they would like to see your SAT or ACT. So as you start to formulate some of the different options for scholarships, definitely take that into consideration. Lastly, the question here is, if there are budget cuts, does that mean that there are less scholarships? Again, that is something that you'll definitely want to ask your college admissions counselor. My school, for one, just for example, we did have to rein in some of our scholarship dollars just because of the fact that there was less money to give at the university. So, that is definitely one example, but that's not necessarily the standard for every university. I think with that, we'll go on to the next slide before we go into some other topics.
Thanks, Rashad. So COVID-19, of course, has brought a lot of uncertainty to students who are coming out of high school and thinking about what they want to do next with their academic goals, their professional goals. And so I know for a lot of students, this has been a confusing time to make decisions about, should I be applying internationally right now, given the current circumstances? Should I take some time off? Or maybe you've been accepted to some universities, but you're really not sure what your options are. So I just want to take some time to talk about options that you may or may not have heard of before if you want to take a gap year or possibly defer your admission. So in the United States, it's actually very common for students coming out of high school to take a gap year, which means when they come out of high school and graduate from their program, they take a year off and traditionally maybe did some kind of volunteer program or maybe an internship in between high school and joining their college or university. Some students have gone abroad to do international volunteer work. But obviously with COVID-19, the gap year situation for students has looked a little bit different. And so that could just be that if you're thinking about taking a gap year while you're waiting to see how things play out with COVID-19, you could use this time to potentially work on an online internship or do online volunteer service. You could use this time even to work on learning another language or improving your English during this time. And there's also a lot of free resources for learning new skills such as coding or web design or graphic design, video and photo editing through a lot of online apps that have become available to students during this time. So if you're thinking about taking a gap year, what does that mean when applying to university? You could choose to take a gap year before you even apply for admission to a university. And then later on, when you have made the decision of the universities and the colleges that you want to apply for, you can talk about the experience that you had during your gap year and how it helped formulate your decision to apply to the university, or maybe during that time you had an experience that solidified or clarified what you wanted to study. So you can certainly address what you did during that time of your gap year during the application process for admission. Now, other students who maybe have already applied to a university or college and have received acceptance to that institution, maybe you still want to take a gap year because you're just not ready to commit or ready to enroll at this time. So in that case, you do have the option to defer your admission. Now, many universities are being more lenient about the length of time that you can defer your admission. In some cases, it's traditionally just been up to 1 semester that you could defer your admission, but many universities are extending that now to a full academic year or 2 semesters that you could actually defer your admission and then use that time to do what you would like during the gap year while you wait. So if that is the case, it's a good idea to go ahead and contact the university admissions office or college admissions office and let them know that you are thinking about deferring your admission, and they can give you the options to defer. In some cases, you might have to submit some additional documentation to process that admission deferral, but those options are available to you. So certainly we don't want you to feel the pressure, feel like you're locked in. If you've been accepted to a university and you're not ready to commit to it, you do have options. So reach out to the admission counselors. And any students taking that gap year, again, I would just emphasize, use that time wisely to build on your skill sets. There's a lot of organizations doing online internships and volunteer experiences, like I mentioned. So if you're not able to go do something in person, use that time to make the most of it. And one other thing I'll emphasize as well, you could also take that time to look for additional scholarship funding. So maybe the college or the university that you've been accepted to was not able to offer you any scholarships at this time, but maybe when you defer your admission, there could be more scholarship opportunities that open up during that time that you could apply for. Or you could also use that time to look for external scholarships outside of the university and apply for those. So with that, I'll transition to our next slide. And the question that a lot of students are asking is, now that universities have gone test optional, are they going to stay test optional? That is to be determined. Each institution and college and university will make that decision on their own. So this is actually a really good time to apply and submit an application, since we don't know that timeline of when universities might stop being test optional. It's a good time to apply now. And again, if you're not sure if you can enroll even after acceptance, remember you have that option to defer your admission as well. So with that, I think we're going to go into talking about our individual institutions and sharing what we're doing to support students during this time, and just a brief overview of our campuses. So we represent a diverse group of 6 colleges and universities. We have both public and private institutions from the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Midwest of the United States. So again, my university that I represent is Minnesota State University, Mankato. We are a public university located in the state of Minnesota, in the city of Mankato, hence the name. We're a mid-sized institution of about 14,000 students, and we've had students come to us from over 95 countries to study. Even during this time of COVID-19, we've had new students enroll on campus for our programs, and we've also been able to have students start online from their home countries if they're not able to physically enroll. And we've also had many students defer their admission as well for the next academic year. So we have a lot of options to accommodate students, especially during this time. We are also test optional as well. We always have been test optional, so we will accept a standardized test score if you choose to give that to us. And there are some benefits that we can use from your SAT scores if you do take that, to give you some advanced placement into math or English courses. But again, it's not required for admission. We also have a guaranteed scholarship for international students at the bachelor degree level. It's called our International Maverick Scholarship. The only requirement to receive the scholarship is to be admitted to the university, and you'll receive a 40% scholarship for your first year of study. That scholarship can be maintained each year as long as you meet the minimum grade requirements and volunteer requirements to keep that scholarship. So if you have questions, I'm happy to help answer those at the end, but with that, I will hand it over to my colleague.
All right, hello everyone again. Like I said, my name is Bobby. I work for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I actually work at our Florida campus in Daytona Beach, although I live in Orlando. But we do have a campus in Arizona. We have an online through Worldwide, and then we also have a very small, I guess you could say campus, but an office location in Sao Paulo, where they actually have partnerships, with organizations in Brazil, with institutions down there as well. So Embry-Riddle, we are a private nonprofit institution, and we were established in 1926. We were named Harvard of the Skies by Time Magazine. We are the world's oldest, largest fully accredited institution, and we focus on aerospace and aviation. Our institution focuses mostly on STEM programs. We're well known for our engineering programs, as well as our aeronautical science, which is our professional pilot program. We have over 100 instructional aircraft on both of our residential campuses here in the United States. We do have many programs housed in the College of Security and Intelligence, and we do offer business programs as well. So overall, we offer over 80 degree programs. We have a 2-year associate level up to a 4-year bachelor to the master's and the PhD level. Student faculty ratio is about 25:1, so small class sizes allow you to engage with our faculty. So you have a lot of that practical knowledge versus just sitting in a classroom and kind of learning from a book. We have over 100 different labs and facilities, which include such things as an ethical hacking lab, aircraft simulators, spaceflight operations, even games and simulation. We do not require the SAT for admission, so we will look for your academic career for admission decisions, although currently for scholarships we do require the SAT for those top scholarships. We are NCAA Division II ranked for athletics, so we do offer sports scholarships as well on our residential campuses, and our students come from over 148 different countries. So in regards to COVID, we are holding in-person and online courses. We have been doing that since fall. We do a hybrid model where students are on campus one day and maybe online the next. We also provide online only courses. So if you're not able to travel to the United States, you are able to pursue online courses. If you do come to campus, we will put you through a wellness check, which consists of a temperature check and answering specific questions regarding coronavirus and contact tracing. And then we do also random COVID tests on students and faculty staff. But anytime that you would like to be tested, we do have those options available as well. So without further ado, I will pass on to my colleague. Thank you.
All right, greetings. Again, my name is Rashad Howes from Missouri Western State University. Missouri Western is in the center of the United States, in the state of Missouri, and about an hour away from Kansas City, which is the dominant city in our region. Missouri Western is in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is about 40 minutes outside of Kansas City. So you can see a nice, very green picture of our campus here. Lots of spread out space for you to social distance and wear masks and things like that these days. We do have about 100 areas of study. We mostly have undergraduate degrees, but we do have about 15 different master's degrees as well. We have about 5,000 students, and we're very affordable institution, a 4-year institution for international students to come to. So some top undergraduate majors, as you see, is going to be our business degree, engineering technology, biology, computer science, nursing, and sports management. Again, we're pretty affordable. We do have 2 scholarships for international students. We have an automatic scholarship, which is our Griffin Guarantee Scholarship. Students that have an equivalent 3.0 GPA can get up to $4,000 per year. The cool thing about this scholarship is that once students come back for their 2nd year of college, you'll get $1,000 added to your scholarship automatically, another $500 for your 3rd year, and another $500 for your 4th year as well. We do have a need-based full ride scholarship, pays for all of your tuition, housing, meals, and health insurance costs for all 4 years. There is a separate application for this, which does take under consideration your finances. So you do have to make sure that you are a need-based student and you will not be able to attend college without a scholarship of this type. And for both our admissions and for scholarships, we are no SAT, there is no SAT that's required. All right, so lastly, our full cost of attendance is $26,180. And so, like I said, that pays for your tuition, housing, health insurance, and books. So with that, I'll pass it to my next colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashad. Hello, everyone. From the center of America, I'm going to have you fly with me all the way to the east side of the United States, the East Coast. That's New York. Hello, everyone. My name is Yusuf, International Admissions Counselor from Stony Brook University. That's our name. We're also known as SUNY Stony Brook, or the State University of New York at Stony Brook. We are a large research comprehensive institution. We're a public university located in New York. Where exactly in New York? On the beautiful Long Island. What you can see there is a pretty walkable large campus. That's exactly where students live and study. Pretty much anything there is offered, from a train station if you want to take the train all the way to JFK Airport or to the city. We have it right there for you. You just walk to it. We do also have a lot of things are actually happening on campus, any traditions, extracurricular activities, and we have a huge Laval Stadium because we are a Division I institution. Academically, and this is what you are here for, we have more than 200 academic programs. That's more than 200 majors, minors, and combined degree programs, from business management to health science, music, mathematics, engineering, computer science, sociology, and sustainability. They're all housed in what we call colleges or schools. We have College of Arts and Sciences. We have College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, which is like the hardest, but pretty much the best. And all our engineering programs are actually ABET accredited programs. Then we also have College of Business, School of Journalism, School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. So if you want to study anything about the astronomy and environmental studies, etc. In terms of ranking, we're ranked top 1% in the world. We also rank top 1%, top one in the state of top one public university in actually in the state of New York. We have more than 4,600 international students, including Brazil. So let me know if you would like to meet any of our students from Brazil. We'll be happy to have you talk to them and chat with them. And speaking of chat, we actually have a chat component for only students. You can literally choose a student from our current international student and chat with them on our website to talk to them about the experience and how things like. So speaking of scholarship, we have actually scholarships available for international students, including students from Brazil. We have scholarship for the You Are Welcome Here scholarship, which provides 50% of the tuition fees covered. We'll also have the need-based scholarship. For that one, you don't need to provide us with a CSS profile or a bank statement for your parents. All you need to do is just be admitted first, apply to us, and send us a request for it, and we'll add you to a list. And then we have also the merit-based scholarship through either WISE program for women in engineering and sciences, or through our honors or scholars program. This is a very overview of Stony Brook University, and I will hand it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. My Zoom's a little slow there coming out. Hey, everyone. Thank you, Yusuf. Once again, my name is Scott McClama. I'm the International Recruitment Manager at Pepperdine University. Pepperdine is located in Malibu, California, which is part of the greater Los Angeles area. So it's in Los Angeles County. It's about 30 to 40 minutes outside of the city of LA. As you can see from that photo there, we're not in an urban setting though. So outside the city in a very beautiful place, right on the coast in the Pacific Ocean. And then right behind the university is the Santa Monica Mountains, which is part of the National Park Service. Lots of beautiful hiking trails and mountain biking and camping and all that good kind of outdoor stuff. But Malibu itself is a really kind of really laid back beach town. It was one of the first places where surf culture was kind of imported to the mainland United States from its origin in Hawaii. But Malibu's been a big surfing town ever since then. And so that's kind of the general vibe on the campus at Pepperdine. And in fact, if you've ever seen the television show Zoe 101, a little bit of trivia that was actually filmed on our campus. So if you come away with anything from this presentation, it'll probably be that little bit of trivia. Pepperdine is a private Christian liberal arts university with a small to mid-sized student population. So at the undergraduate level, that means around 3,400 students, and 13% of those are international students. In fact, Brazil is in the top 5 of sending countries to Pepperdine University, and so we're excited about that and looking to get it even boosted even a little bit more closer to the top. We do also have 4 graduate schools as well. So we have a graduate school of business, of education and psychology, of law, and of public policy. At the undergraduate level, however, we offer 44 different majors. So if you're familiar with the liberal arts, you know, they're majors that you would find typical of a liberal arts university, runs the spectrum of sciences to social sciences, arts and humanities, business as well. As you can see on the slide, our top 5 majors that are listed down there. I'll also mention a major that we have called Screen Arts, which is our film program. So students, we have a lot of students coming to the university to study film. They're attracted, you know, not just to our program, but to the location where we are, kind of being in Southern California, being in the LA area, you know, right at the epicenter of filmmaking. And so great opportunities for students to do internships and go on to work at some of the studios nearby. Our small size helps us, again, to keep our class sizes small, which is a 13-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So it means a lot of opportunities for students to engage with their professors inside and outside of the classroom and participate in research together with them, even starting as freshmen. It also helps lead to some really great internship opportunities that students are able to get connected with, especially in the Los Angeles area. And we have some kind of formalized internship opportunities. One of those is with the company AEG, which is the largest owner of professional sports franchises in the world, and the second largest presenter of live music. They, as a matter of fact, own the Staples Center, which is the large arena in Los Angeles. And so we have exclusive internships. They have exclusive internships for Pepperdine students, and in fact, even have a Pepperdine classroom in the Staples Center, which is pretty cool. About 80% of our students will participate in a study abroad program, so it's a big part of the student experience, participating in our international programs. As far as applying, we are on the Common Application, and we do offer merit-based scholarships for international students. There's no separate application that's needed to qualify for those scholarships. We have gone test optional, like so many others, for 2021. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about Pepperdine University. And now we're going to travel down the coast to my colleague, Chris.
All right, thank you, Scott. So speaking of surfing, there you go. So really happy to be here today. Again, my name is Chris Toribio. I'm from Orange Coast College. It's a 2-year community college in Costa Mesa, California, which is in Orange County. Costa Mesa is about 5 minutes away from Huntington Beach, which is also known as Surf City, USA. So the reason we're called Orange Coast is because we're by the ocean. So, but we're one of the largest community colleges in California. And we have a lot of students from Brazil. We actually have 53 students right now currently studying at OCC from Brazil, from all over the country. And just looking at some data, community college is a very popular option for students in Brazil. In fact, the majority of students studying undergraduate studies from Brazil in the United States are studying at 2-year community colleges. So it's a very common way for students to get their education or get started with their education. Many of our Brazilian students come to do their 2 years with us, ultimately transfer to a university, but many also do come for 2-year associate degree programs and certificates. So some of our most popular programs for our Brazilian students is actually film and television. So many students who want to pursue basically entry-level positions in the film and television industry That's something that we do provide at OCC. We also have a really big theater and acting program as well, but also a lot of coastal programs are really strong too. So another really popular program that we do offer that we're really well known for actually is our marine science program. We have the largest two-year marine science program in the United States and the only student-led research aquarium in the state of California. So in total, we host about 22,000 students pursuing a wide variety of programs and majors. We invested about $650 million in campus upgrades, including the only on-campus housing for community colleges in Southern California. If you want to learn more about Orange Coast College, you can follow us on Instagram at OCC International. This is a great way for you to learn more about our school. This is my former student assistant, Natin. He is from Ubatuba, Brazil. He transferred to Florida International University, which is actually a very popular university for students to travel, which I also know is a very popular university for students out in Brazil. But you can transfer basically anywhere from our institution to any institution, including the 5 other institutions here presenting on today's topic. We are test optional. So community colleges basically invented the rule of not requiring SAT or ACT, and the SAT or ACT is not required when you transfer to university as well. So that's basically OCC in a nutshell. And if you have any more questions, you can go ahead and add them in the chat, or you can contact us later for more information. So speaking of which, this is our contact information right here. So please screenshot this if you want to get in contact with us after the presentation. We'll be happy to answer your questions then. And of course, we'll be happy to answer your questions now. So let's go ahead and get the Q&A facilitated right now if there's any questions right now in the chat. Oops, I'll just leave that up there real quick. Let's see, what do we have here?
Yeah, it looks like we have the one question in the chat from Lorena. She says, does the institution contact with the student's high school to get the information such as like extracurricular activities and grades, or is this something that is that the students put on the application? Who would like to take that question? UC? Or
thank you, Rashad. So definitely, I mean, Scott, sorry. Thank you, Scott.
It's
so,
okay.
Yeah,
people confuse me and Rashad all the time.
All the time. All the time.
So definitely, that's a very, very good question. It doesn't mean we don't trust you. I never been in a situation where I would actually contact the school of student to make sure that those activities mentioned in the common application are right or not. Definitely, there are a lot of ways where we could actually see them. And just want to tell you here, the reason why I'm jumping on this, we have an example of the You Are Welcome Here scholarship. We do look at leadership skills, and the only way to identify leadership skills in applicants is by going back to their common application and see the section where you list all the activities and involvements and etc. We look at them and we see them, and we see also if you provided any certificate or any recommendation letter from a teacher or someone that actually talks about that as well. And that's how, but we do not actually, because it's a holistic review, it's not only one thing that we rely on. To you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, UC. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, yeah, let me just add to that real quick. So yeah, all of that is all self-reported information. So you're going to basically tell us that what your involvement is. And of course, we want you to be truthful. And just FYI, there are some institutions that do an audit of a student's activities. So they would contact your school to see if these things are truthful, but these are random audits that happen. Typically, these happen at very selective institutions and also very large institutions that have to do an audit of these extracurricular activities and leadership. So just kind of keep that in mind, that everything that you put in your application should be truthful and it should be authentic, as that can be a basis for your application to not be reviewed by the admissions committee. But, you know, we do trust students. We haven't had a lot of issues with students not providing the most accurate information on their application, but just keep in mind, we can find out if you do.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. Luca is asking, if you want to apply to a university that is test optional, would you need to have more from other credits? So example, community work, school grades, etc. Who'd like to Liz, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. So kind of going back to our presentation, it does depend on the type of admission review that the institution has. So again, if it's a holistic review, they're going to be looking at more than just your academic coursework. They'll also take into account community work, your grades. If you do end up submitting any test scores, they'll factor that in. If they require a personal statement or maybe an essay as part of their application, all of those things are going to work together to focus on your admission review and the admission decision. But if it's an institution that offers guaranteed admission where you just have to meet minimum criteria, typically from your academic grades, then that's going to be the focus of the application. So overall, it kind of depends on that review, but for any institution that has gone test optional, yes, they'll be putting more, if they traditionally required SAT, they're going to be putting more weight or focusing more on those other aspects of your application, such as your academic grades, plus the extracurricular activities, personal statements. But I can let my colleagues jump into that too if they have anything to add.
I'll just jump in and say that, as an institution that, had previously required, before this year, had required SAT or ACT to be submitted. Even when we required it, it was never the most important thing that we looked at. In fact, it was, it wasn't even the second most important thing that we looked at. Your grades in high school were always a lot more important to us. And so I know, I can't speak for every institution. There are institutions that place more importance on standardized tests. But for, a lot of us, especially those, that were kind of considered the holistic review, as you saw from earlier, it was more important, that's a much better indicator of how you're going to be as a college student is how you were as a high school student rather than an exam that you may take once or twice. So that being said, not much has really changed. It doesn't mean that you have to have better grades now if you don't submit an exam. So anyone else?
Lorena has a question. She says that here in Brazil, we have a similar test, the name. Does an institution, the US, accept a name?
I know there are some. Simone, you might know actually better than we do. I don't know that any of our institutions do. I don't think any of ours do. Shaking their heads no. But there are some out there that do accept it.
Yes, in a universe of more than 4,700 universities, some universities may, higher education institutions may accept, others no. But what we encourage you to do, Lorena, is to go to the universities, institutions' website and take a look, and you find this information. Or please contact the EducationUSA centers and be glad to help you with that. I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
And the question is about interview. How important are the interviews in this admission process, and especially now during the pandemic? What are your thoughts about that?
Do any of us do interviews for admission?
I do. Sorry.
We don't.
Go ahead, Rashad.
We don't do any interviews. I've worked with a university that did take a lot of take interviews under consideration. But if there's ever a situation where the interview is a university is going to be asking you to do an interview, definitely, obviously, take it seriously. If you're going to be meeting with them, whether it be virtually or otherwise, professional dress obviously is going to be a big thing, and then also preparation. But again, the interview may be something that is a little bit more, kind of like the preparation for like SAT. It might not be something that most universities are going to be requiring from a student, even if they have in the past. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll say, so we've started offering them as optional since the pandemic, doing Zoom interviews, just because you know, that our campus is closed down and students can't come and visit like they normally can. But it's, you know, it's not required, but it's a good opportunity. You know, I utilize it. I just ask the students when I do the interviews, I just ask them maybe 3 questions, and then leave the rest of the time for them to ask me questions. It's, you know, it's just as important for them to kind of, you know, learn more about the university, because again, you know, students are not able to travel and come see it for themselves. And so we really kind of utilize that time for me to, you know, kind of, you know, get to know the student a little bit better, and then to learn a little bit more about the university. So that's kind of, you know, what we use it for. And you know, I would say, you know, to students you know, it's a good opportunity. You know, I would take the opportunity if I were you. I mean, I know you know, you may not be comfortable, and that's totally fine. But it's a good way for you to learn more about, you know, an institution that you're considering living at for, you know, 4 years of your life. So, and there's other ways to do it. There's a couple other programs where we've accepted optional interviews through these. It's called Vericant and Initial View, or a couple other ways that students can kind of do a pre-recorded kind of interview and have that sent in. But yeah, you know, when I interview the students to answer the question, I take notes and I put it down in the file to go back and look later. And yeah, so it can be, you know, helpful for sure. And it's a good opportunity, especially if you feel like you have something you want to explain about your academic record. Maybe there's, you know, a semester on your transcript that doesn't look that great, but it's, you know, you had a family situation that happened. You know, it's a good way to kind of, you know, take time to explain those kind of things to an admission counselor and give a little bit more context about your application.
Actually, I have a follow-up to that. Actually, I was going to ask Scott this question. I know for a lot of private universities, not really an interview, but what's also taken into consideration for a lot of smaller liberal arts universities and colleges is that interaction that you have with your admissions counselor. Is that the case, Scott, for your institution?
Yeah, so we consider that one of the things that is a part of our holistic review is what's called demonstrated interest. And so that definitely is a factor in demonstrated interest. And so what that means, what demonstrated interest means is, you know, that the student has made effort and kind of shown that they are, you know, interested in your university. And so, you know, communications from them reaching out, whether it's email, whether it's phone call, you know, when, you know, we are on the road and we're recruiting, thankfully, hopefully we'll be back out there soon. When we're out on the road, you know, if they came to our table, if they had a conversation with us, if they, you know, wanted to meet up to talk more about the university, that kind of thing. And so, you know, all these things we kind of take note of, and that goes into part of the holistic review. So definitely the interviews are, get counted into that.
And I'll just add one thing as well. Even if an institution does not require an interview for admission, sometimes if they have highly selective scholarships, there might be an interview component for that scholarship. So just keep that in mind as well. It could be a criteria. So again, a lot of the same factors my colleagues said about preparation and practicing for that interview will come into play as well. And it looks like we did get a good question. For colleges that are near the beaches, are there surfing championships?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The World Championship of Surfing happens at Huntington Beach near our campus. But we have surf classes, we have surf clubs, a lot of, you know, opportunities for you to do your, you know, aquatic sports and whatever. So absolutely. I actually have YouTube videos here of our Brazilian students surfing. So you can go ahead and watch that if you have a chance to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we do as well. We have a surf team that competes and has actually won. The team has won the championship before. So they compete as a team versus teams from other universities around the area. In fact, I even think they compete against some East Coast universities as well. And one of the members of the team recently, she graduated, I think last year or 2 years ago. Her name is Kaylee Moore. And she actually does a lot of video stuff for the WSL World Surfing League right now. Her sister is Carissa Moore, who just recently won the women's championship of surfing. So that's pretty cool, kind of to have that connection. They're from Hawaii as well, Chris. Yeah, we have a surfing class as well. You can get, it's a college physical education course. You get credit for it and learn how to surf. So definitely come out to the West Coast and surf it up with us.
It's not just on the West Coast. East Coast has surf
True,
as well.
yeah. Exactly. In fact, that's where I learned how to surf was just south of Daytona Beach, isn't it?
And hey, in the north, we have snowboarding. So come on up. We got snow.
There you go.
And we have one more question here about extracurriculars. So Lorena is asking if she's talking about volunteer work. So, and she's saying that it's not something so popular in Brazil, and that if the higher education institutions prefer a specific kind of volunteer work, and if you prefer, and if this would help the application, or if she can do anything she wants. What do you think about that?
So I would
jump. Nope, Liz, you can go ahead.
All right, I would say for any type of volunteer service, it's always good if the volunteer work that you are participating in gives back to others in some capacity. So whether that's just to students at your school or maybe your local community, and that could be something as simple as if your school does. I know in the U.S. sometimes we have what are called little brother, little sister assignments, or sometimes you might be partnered with somebody at a local elementary school and you just meet up with them and read books or something like that. So I don't know if that's something your school would offer or match you with, where you are able to mentor or tutor another student who's maybe in a younger class than you and help them in their education. It could be something as simple as that. I also know right now with everything going on with COVID, some students have actually been able to volunteer at COVID testing sites just with logistics. So that's another creative way that you could possibly give back if that's something that's available to you. But it doesn't have to be some extravagant volunteer program or service, but just something that you're taking your time to make a difference in your community and the people around you. So that's in a summary of what I would say we would consider volunteer work. Go ahead, Bobby.
I mean, that was very well said. I was pretty much going to say almost the same thing. Something else that you could potentially do is say that your family owns a business, or, you have a family friend, you go and help them out. You could do something like with a food drive, or, working in a restaurant maybe. It could, potentially be volunteer work, but it also is helping you learn those leadership skills as well. So just showing involvement in almost anything, I think would be great, to be able to have you stand out a little bit. Versus saying that you stayed at home and played your PlayStation or Xbox and shopped online. But just anything that, you can find to do, like Liz said, that kind of gives back, just gets you involved in something in the community, in the school, with, like I said, family, friends, whatever that may be. That would definitely be something that you would be able to put on your application.
Last week, our office, EducationUSA PUC Rio, did this Instagram live. So if you go to EducationUSA PUC Rio Instagram, you see, and I gave the presentation, you see this live about extracurriculars. So it was, I think, last Tuesday. Yes, 1 week ago. Okay, so this was fun. Great presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everyone who was here, and thank you for the university representatives. Your presentation was very enlightening and very, very interactive. So thank you so much. And by the way, I love your slides. It's not PowerPoint, huh?
No, Canva. It's Canva.
Yes, I noticed. It's very, very, very good. Thank you. If you could send a presentation, a PowerPoint, to me, I can maybe share with prospective students if you are okay with that. And since we recorded the session, we are going to make the session available to all the students through our YouTube page, EducationUSA Brazil YouTube page. Okay. Lorena is asking one more question, and you wrap up. Okay, Lorena. And the advisors, EducationUSA advisors are texting. What a great presentation. Oh. How do I prove that I'm engaged in extracurricular activity or a volunteer work?
Yeah, Lorena, that's something that you can put on your application. So I know my institution, which uses the common application, there's a whole section there for you to list extracurricular activities. So you write it there. You talk about like the years that you did it and what it was, and there's a brief little description you can write about it. So that's it. Simply is you put it on the application. I don't know if other institutions have something different that they do. Great. So yeah, like my colleagues said, I just want to echo that think outside the box when it comes to extracurricular activities, especially now, since some of these things are not as easily accessible. Family commitments that you have, definitely, if you're a part of a church congregation and there's opportunities to do it there, certainly you can put that as well. Even a job, as Bobby mentioned.
Yes, be creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that, I want to say thank you again. And remember, everyone, that we have lots of activities happening. And we are celebrating the International Education Week. By the way, we have the International Education Week, but we do activities the entire month. So please take a look at our agenda, www.educationusa.org.br, and you see all the events, coming events. Thank you for the session. Scott, Christopher, Elizabeth, Youssef, Rashad, and Bobby, you guys are great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Bye-bye.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tchau, obrigado.
Obrigada a você.
Obrigado.
A vocês todos.